that. So, you get these people in the classes that are very engaging and you make a connection with because they get it, right? Hopefully we all know what we're talking about because there's plenty of people that don't. And those ones like, it's a little bit more challenging. So, I appreciated that from the start, which kept, I think, conversations going with Sonny. He is one of the people that's really trying to make change at the org, right? Really gets it, really trying to push that giant stone uphill. It began with conversations about trying to use the competing values framework. What does that look like? He's trying to get approval, all these things, takes forever. And then there's a slight pivot as we kind of moved into like, well, maybe PDA is the answer. And then kind of dug into that. He takes those ideas, we kind of go through that approval process, and that does happen. And really from there, he just set everything up almost the same way we kind of talk about, textbook, although behind the scenes, I'm sure it wasn't textbook for you, Sonny. But as someone who's kind of watching on the as an observer, weighing in at times and giving feedback, for me, it felt like, man, he's just moving this thing along. And then once that moment occurred of actually doing the polling, getting survey results, and then this flash bang of what happens when he brings it into senior leaders. This kind of success story we'd all like to see, in my opinion. Now I know since then everything takes a life of its own, and Sonny will catch us up on that. But it's a great example of, I think, what we would all like to see of we really can affect change. Sonny's been there a long time trying different ways, and you just never really know. So one, it's not just a great start, like, hey, look at the tool and how the tool can be used. Yes, but I would add, and I didn't tell Sonny this, so I'm putting him on the spot, but you can also kind of look at Sonny as a servant leader and a leader in the sense of a bias to action, do something, a leader in the sense of have the right attitude, don't ever give up, don't get frustrated, don't get pickled, keep at it, because you never know. And then it can just take off. So yes, the tool, but also I think there's a little bit of a nice role model that you see happening that is encouraging for all of us who ever feel like, man, they ain't ever going to get it here. This is never going to change here. These people, whatever. I love it for all of that. So it's practically helpful. And I think it's a bit encouraging and helpful in that sense too. So having said that, Sonny, I appreciate, I kind of put you on the spot to ask to see if you could do this, because I just loved the story. I kept catching myself sharing the story. Thank you for taking the time for this, because you put this all together really just for this group. Thank you for that, and just carving out time in the space of your day to come here and do this, show up for all of us. With that, Sonny, I'll hand off to you.
Thank you very much, Scott. I really appreciate that. Because the only thing that I will ask is if you could help me kind of keep an eye on the chat and individuals raising hands as I go through here and stop me when you need. But yeah, thank you for the great introduction. I really appreciate it. And yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed learning quite a bit, and I'm happy to share. So hopefully, someone here can learn a little bit as well. So with that, we'll start out with the actual Agile transformation journey. That's kind of the journey that I had been on with this group, and hopefully this will be a nice positive case study for all of you to learn from. As far as the agenda today goes, I'm going to start with, why did we actually even get started on this journey? We're going to talk about what happened along the way, and where are we now? I'll also be sprinkling in little, what I refer to as golden nuggets along the way. So we'll kind of end with a summation of those nuggets that we found along our journey. So with that, we can get started on why did we start this journey? And I know we're just starting off on our hike right now, but we're already going to find our first golden nugget of removing our confirmation bias. This is one of those things where we had to remove that idea that I had going in as what I thought was the problem, right? And there's many times where we can go in with some assumptions, and we tend to curb our questions towards some of those assumptions, and we might miss some significant turns along the way. And in addition to that, once you're aware of your own confirmation biases, then you can start thinking about what are their confirmation biases, because we're all coming in with some, some idea of what we think might be wrong. And when you're aware of your own, you're able to see it in others, and you're able to kind of ask a lot of questions along the way. So that way we can make sure we can get down to the true why are we here, rather than, why I think we should be here. So with that, we focused on a business outcome of employee engagement. And we didn't actually stop there. They wanted to they understood with Path to Agility, employee engagement is at the top of the business outcome. Without that, nothing else. Everything else, I should say, flows from that. And so we started diving down a little bit. Well, what about employee engagement? So what we're doing is we started focusing on innovation, right? And they were very happy that the teams were delivering a lot of work, but they weren't excited about the fact that the teams weren't really providing that level of innovation that they were expecting, right? They thought that things were going to continue moving a little bit broader, not requiring so much detail. So innovation was one of those items that we were specifically looking at. Next is a level of understanding about the business, right? So there was a focus on how do we bridge these gaps that exist between what the industry insight was and the development teams. How do we bring them closer to understand what the industry is asking for, right? Which should also help with the innovation. And lastly, there was this recognition that there needed to be an increase in trust, right? They realized that they kept talking about psychological safety, but they weren't really doing anything to ensure that the teams felt that psychological safety was really there. So they wanted to kind of focus a little bit on that as well. So with that, we started to go through and take our little journey. And as Scott mentioned, the decision was made to use Path to Agility for this. One of the main reasons why we ended up choosing this particular tool was because through all those conversations, I realized that the group was very results oriented, right? They wanted to see results. They wanted to focus on results. So because of that, Path to Agility offers a little bit of more detailed roadmap, right? They could start to see the results as they unfolded. And the first thing that they saw actually was our initial assessment. So Path to Agility has 5 stages: align, learn, predict, accelerate, and adopt. We decided to focus on the first 3 only: align, learn, and predict, and really kind of stay focused. And in doing those, this results-oriented group saw a blaring, issue that they were having, right? Here's an opportunity. And thanks to Path to Agility, it was the bright red. Everything else was orange, maybe a slight tone of green, but here was this one big bright red, item that they were like, oh, wow, okay, clearly we need to start working on that. And that kind of got everybody excited. It happened to match up where they were all kind of thinking a lot of the issues were. So that worked out really well. And we were ready kind of to start moving along on this journey. So the next piece is and this was, Scott, thank you very much for this. This was where Scott really interjected here, is to say, we need to formalize this agile leadership team before we start diving in. And there is a capabilities card specific to agile leadership team. So it kind of described what that was. And one of the things that, Scott, I love the comment. You're like, man, Sonny, you're swinging for the fences here. No doubles. We're just kind of going at it. And I was like, yeah, I want the director of the director of that division to be part of the agile leadership team, right? And sure enough, he was up for it, and he's like, sure, let's do this. So on my agile leadership team, I had the director of the division, I had the vice president, and a couple of key managers along the way. And with that, kind of came across that next little nugget is get to know your leaders, get to understand them. There was so I've been with the company for 7 years. So they kind of have known me, seen what I did for another division. But it wasn't until I met with the director one-on-one outside of the team. It was even just like a walk by his office and, hey, let's stop by and let's have a conversation. And it wasn't until I got to maybe show him some of my vulnerabilities on what some of my challenges were in moving forward with this. Him kind of exposing a little bit of his vulnerabilities in a one-on-one situation, and that really kind of helped us kind of connect. And I think that helped get him excited about being part of this agile leadership team and really kind of help growing. So definitely a lot of emphasis on, getting to know who are those leaders of the group, who are those ones that are really going to help drive this from the top down. So, wonderful little nugget there. Next is we started looking at our capabilities. If you guys are familiar with Path to Agility at all, right? You go through and you have your agile outcomes that you start to focus in, and then once you get into which agile outcomes you want to focus on, there's anywhere between 3 to 5 capabilities that help to achieve those agile outcomes. So we started mapping out, okay, what makes sense for us based on where we saw those survey results. And this is where it was kind of an unexpected little nugget is I was going through the assumption that, all right, so if we are going to focus on 1 or 2 of these what do you call those? Agile outcomes, we're going to stay within the capabilities of that agile outcome. And through conversation, they were like, well, why can't we take 2 capabilities from A agile outcome and 1 capability from B agile outcome? And I'm like, you know what? There isn't any reason why we couldn't do that, and I was like, and I kind of said, hey, you guys just taught me something. I was so focused and so like, oh, this is the path, that I didn't realize that, yeah, we could actually change these up. And I share that because the vice president has actually used that moment several times with others in his team to say, you know what? I'm going to take a page out of Sonny's book, and I'm going to let you know, I think I was wrong here, and it's okay to say that I was wrong here, and this is where I was going, or this is where I was leading. So it was a really unexpected nugget, but I'm glad it kind of stuck with him, and it kind of helped to create that bond between the 2 of us. So again, sharing with the team that kind of unexpectedness, So if there are learning moments along the way, yeah, share those moments and give them the recognition for helping you out and teaching you a little something there. So, all right, so now we're focused on our capabilities. We actually created experiments, and we sat down and we said, okay, we are going to focus on these capabilities, and we're going to focus on 1 or 2 acceptance criteria within those capabilities. And we created a form where we outlined an experiment. And it was very important that we called it an experiment, because with an experiment, there opens up that possibility of failure. We don't expect it to necessarily work. We hope it works, but we're okay if it fails because we are experimenting, right? And so we kind of created a nice little template that said, okay, here is our hypothesis. Here's what we think that If we make this change, we feel that these are the outcomes that we're going to see. And we're going to make this change and we're going to come back and we're going to measure it within 2 weeks or within 1 month, whatever the appropriate time frame was, which kind of led us to our last spot was the retrospective, right? Fast and frequent feedback. All right, we said we were going to run this experiment for 2 weeks. So now at the end of the 2 weeks, let's take a look at where we're at. And it was good. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it failed, but there was always this learning, there was always this education within that experiment process, and allowed us to kind of create the next experiment. Sometimes it was okay, cool, that's good enough. Let's change directions, and sometimes it was an addition to that. So again, very, 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 very helpful way of approaching this. All right, so that was our journey, and bringing us all up to speed to where we are today. We kind of stalled out a little bit with the holidays in November and December. It just couldn't really find the time to meet, and then the industry had its largest trade show in February, so all of January and February were really focused on bringing that trade show together. So, it is what it is. Could I have pushed? Could I have done that? Absolutely. I probably would have lost a lot more momentum than just kind of recognizing, what, this is a time to kind of put a pause on this, and we're looking to hopefully spin it back up very, very shortly. I didn't necessarily completely go away. I tried to maintain some excitement by sending articles, sending videos, sending, hey, here's a really neat LinkedIn post that is associated to what we're trying to do here. So it's not like I disappeared completely, but I did try to stay engaged with them, sending them little, whether it be videos, articles, blog posts, little information to kind of keep the excitement going, which kind of leads me to the next nugget here on, you really need to make sure that you believe in what you are doing. And I know it kind of sounds silly saying it, but it's like, you are going to be tested. I've been, like I said, with this organization for 7 years. There's one division that it didn't go as well as what it is with this division, and we got to a certain point and the leaders are just like, no, we're done with this, we want to move on. And so it's like, okay, and so then I just jumped over into the next division. But you're going to be tested in a way that if you're not fully bought in, if you're just kind of going through the certification process because it looks good on a resume, if you're just going through, all of the training just because you want to, say, oh, I've completed the training and now I know everything, and you're not fully bought in, you're going to be challenged because, transformation's hard. And if you start to wane in your excitement for this transformation, if you start to fall back and say, okay, well, you know what, maybe this isn't right, or maybe this isn't, they're going to focus on that very, very quickly. And unfortunately, they're looking for that out. And if you expose it and you show it to them, they'll let you know, and it's going to make it even that much harder. So like I said, we're at the point right now where we're starting to come up with our next experiment. We're spinning up the whole ALT program again. And to be honest with you, I've actually even gotten a few emails over the last week or so saying, hey, Sonny, when are we going to spin this up? So I'm excited that they're actually looking forward to it again and ready to get back at it. So, hopefully with the next set of experiments, we'll get a couple more quick wins to really pump up excitement. And then hopefully we'll begin to expand that assessment. It was only taken by our leaders, but I'd love to be able to give it to the teams and get their feedback in all of this to say, over the past, 8 months, how did it, how are some of the changes going? I've definitely gotten some verbal feedback. even from our CEO, he's like, man, Sonny, I really do see a change in that director. The conversations, the way he approaches things are starting to be a little bit different, and so it's definitely very, very exciting, what we're going through there. So, all right. So now that we've gone through the journey, let's take a little recap on our nuggets that we learned along the way. Remember, removing your confirmation bias, right? We all have it going in, acknowledge that, but don't get settled in that. Be willing to ask more questions, be willing to hear what they're saying and go down the different path if that's going to be more helpful. So get to know your leaders. Obviously, don't be afraid to expose a little bit of vulnerabilities, and then making sure you believe in what you do, which is exactly what we were just talking about. And one last little nugget that I'll add here is stay involved with the Agile community. This is tough. And without Scott's support, without getting to see some of you guys on a more regular basis, I would not have had the energy to continue doing this. There's plenty of times, and Scott knows that I'm just like, Scott, am I doing the right thing here? This seems crazy. It's like I must be wrong because everybody's against me right now, and having a community to continue to fall back on, ask questions, like-minded individuals, really does help. So definitely stay involved in all these things. Go to the Global Scrum Gathering if you get a chance to, go to the different other seminars and webinars that are available out there. And yeah. So with all that, thank you very much, Scott, for the opportunity to kind of talk through my particular case study. I'll kind of open the door for questions, comments, what have you. But yeah, that's my little Agile journey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sonny. Yeah, first of all, just thank you for taking the time again. Thank you for sharing the story. Super helpful for so many reasons for so many people. But yes, let's do Q&A now. I'm sure that gives you a lot to think about for a number of reasons. I'll be kind of watching over the chat as those come in. But I have a couple that are the first thing on my mind. So first of all this work and effort, Sonny, as far as the results, what did you see? How did this change things? Anything you'd point to if people are going to go back and tell stories like, hey, this is exciting, boss. This is what it did for another guy's company. What would you point to? What were the results you got?
Yeah, some of the key results. The one that I love talking about the best is the fact that we have 3 separate divisions within our company. All 3 divisions are doing 100% continuous deployment. That means we are deploying into production one user story or one work item at a time. And we are deploying all day long, anytime during the day. And we are up to, for this particular division, we're up to deploying 7 user stories a day into production. And we've hit a physical limit. Our pipelines actually can't support anymore. So we're going through and we're working to increase our pipeline, which is absolutely amazing that we're to this point already. But we would be able to deploy more into production, except for we just ran into a physical limitation that we're working on delivering. So I mean, that's kind of one of the key benefits, I think, is the fact that we've been able to get that far to where now we're taking less, our cycle times are 10 days. Our WIP is under 5 per team. We are flowing through, we are increasing our throughput, and that's something that our leaders can see and respond to.
What were they before? You said it's 10 days now. What was it before?
Yeah, so a year ago it was running anywhere between 35 to 40 days. And then when we started the project 2 years ago, it was up over 100 days. I mean, we had over 200 items in there in our WIP, and it was a mess. It was a mess.
Yeah, and the CD, where was that at before? If it even was set up?
No, and there was none. There was none. It was once a week delivery. Anywhere between 15 to 20 items, and there was a 50-50 chance that you'd have to roll them back. So it was crazy.
I can relate. That brings back memories, bad memories, but memories. Yes. I'm checking again. If there's other questions for everyone else, I don't want to dominate, but I did write down a number of things. So structurally, how did this look and how did this roll out in terms of you mentioned people that are part of a quote unquote team? How often did you meet? Was there a backlog, et cetera?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I kind of left it up to them. Um, you know, at first, we said, oh, let's meet once a month, and I was like, okay, that sounds good. And then after a couple of months, I love the fact that they were like, you know what, Sonny, I don't think we're moving fast enough here. Let's meet every other week. Let's meet 2 weeks because we really need to. Maybe we'll go back to once a month. He goes, but let's wait. And then we got into this every 2 weeks cadence, right? And so I tried to create experiments that wouldn't last much longer than 2 weeks, so that way we could continue to evaluate every single time. Okay, cool. Let's go out. We're going to try this. We're going to try it for 2 weeks and come back and we're going to reevaluate. So just the fact that they had recommended that we cut it from once a month to 2 weeks. Again, another big win for me because I was just like, okay, cool. They want to do this. This isn't something that I'm pushing on them.
And they're acting like a team. Like there are things to do. You call them experiments, but are they're the ones having to buy in and do part of this work as well, right? They have skin in the game. It affects them. They're doing some of that.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. It's one of those things where, there's, you know, my assignment is more from that, coaching standpoint. I'm sitting there listening to them and guiding them, but I told them, I said, this is not me. This is not me going out and doing things. These are things that you are going to have to do, and they get it and they buy in. It's funny. I mean, I have, the director of the division saying, "Oh, Sonny, I apologize. I didn't get to review those videos that I said I was going to review, but I'm going to do them this evening." And it's like, all right, cool. Go ahead and do that. And it's like, he doesn't have to do that. He's the director of the division. He can say, I don't want to do it, but yeah, he's kind of saying, I get it. I'm supposed to be doing this and I apologize. I'm not going to be able to get it done, but here's my plan to get it done. So.
And one of those first battles, if I remember right, was they're like, yes, let's prioritize the work that the teams are doing. And one of your own team members was one of the first ones to break that rule and go and start like changing priorities on team members. And if I remember right, the team actually kind of had this moment of, are we going to hold each other accountable and really deal with this or not? Because we say we're not, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how that right off the bat that I remember that happened?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know I can't remember the specific example, but I do know that, we definitely had those different, we created a team agreement, right? And as part of that team agreement was that we are holding each other accountable for the work that we are being done, right? And within our team agreement, which was kind of funny, is we actually put in our team agreement, this is what we're going to do when we disagree. This is how we are going to handle those disagreements. Maybe that should have been another nugget, but we actually called that out in our team agreement to say, listen, we know this isn't going to go smooth. How do we handle it when it doesn't go smooth, right? And this is one of those opportunities where, yes, we looked at it and we said, hey, we're not doing some of the things that we're doing. And I think, Scott, what you were mentioning here was, so priorities kept shifting. And so they instituted a form, right? Who wants more work? But this was actually driven from the product owners. They said, "Oh, wait a minute. If we're going to change the priority for the team, we need to fill out a form that says we are changing the priority. This is the reason why that we're changing the priority, and here is the impact of us changing that priority to the existing work, right? It was an acknowledgement. And this was driven by the team. It wasn't even something that I recommended. It was just like, okay, guys, how are you going to solve this? This is a problem. And it was different from the team. And quite honestly, I think we filled it out twice. And then and then they were like, you know what? This isn't fun. how about we just don't change priorities anymore? We just stay a lot more focused. So
Love it. Yeah, that's the one I remember. There was a story about someone saying, "Well, I didn't know they're working on something." Like, really? That didn't know the
yes.
teams. But yeah, that healthy accountability, I think, is really, really powerful. And you mentioned a couple of nuggets on the way. Was there anything in particular that was like the aha, or it surprised you on how they work that you didn't necessarily see coming, but you roll with? Because I know your personality type is definitely flexible. Roll with it. You're throwing out these experiments, but some of the either the way they came together, the way they worked, the dysfunction. Because I know there was challenging personalities and there were silos and like a little bit of, I don't say turf wars, but people like their different areas and who's going to dictate how these different groups are going to play together. And somehow it all comes together. This, what was anything as a surprise or takeaway on that level of these groups coming together?
Yeah. So I think the biggest surprise for me was the fact that um our director, although wanting to change very quickly, would fall back to some of those old habits. And I remember at one point in time that he was like, "Listen, this is the way we're gonna do it," and I was like, "Whoa, okay." So this is like, oh, okay. So it was just kind of like, letting him say that, clearly seeing the nonverbals from from the rest of the team during that conversation, but then very, very quickly going back and saying, okay, listen, I know that wasn't the right thing to say. I know that isn't the right thing to do. We're going to work on that. But I need your help in working on that. We didn't get it right this time. And he fell back into this old habit. That's okay. He's had that habit for 15, for 20 years. It's not going to go away today. So let's accept it. Let's deal with it, and let's move on, and let's try to prevent it from happening again. So I think, that was kind of the team kind of felt the aha moment of, okay, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to get it right every single time. It's okay, but we're going to recover. How do we react to that?
Nice. Thanks for that. Questions from anyone else, either on that, how he applied path agility, kicking that off, getting that started?
I have a comment that a lot of meetups, a lot of conferences have tracks for experience stories. And any place where they can get information that comes from actual work as worth a dozen pontificating presentations. So I would really encourage you to look out for other opportunities to share this story.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. Yeah.
100% agree. Other questions, comments for those in the middle of the journey, transformation journey, how to get started? Patrick?
I have a question. Yeah. How did you handle, or what was the capacity for the technical changes, advancements required to get where the team wanted to be?
Okay. From a technical standpoint, more specifically, can you explain?
Yeah, just in terms of like increasing the delivery cadence and all that, and making sure the pipelines are there. Like you mentioned that now you've got some pipeline capacity issue. Is that do you have that in the team? Some people or person that can be like, oh, I know how to handle this, and or did
Yeah.
outside,
Yep. The Scrum teams themselves, there was a recognition that some of this was happening, and I will have to say that on day one of this journey, I challenged the team and I said, we're going to get to 10 work items a day. And I got laughed at, right? They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, that's a unicorn. We'll never get to continuous deployment at all, right?" And it's like, and so as we were going through this was this kind of recognition, and I reminded them quite often, remember way back when, this is what my challenge was, and this is where we are, and keeping them very focused on that. And then the reality came when we started hitting some of those limitations, right? And so it's like, wow, we don't have enough pipelines to actually push all the work through right now. So we brought the group together. as part of the continuous deployment, when we started doing it, I created a monthly check-in where the entire group came together and said, okay, guys, we're just going to be focusing on continuous deployment right now. What are our problems? What are our risks? What are we seeing? And that's kind of where it started to start to bubble up to say, well, we're having trouble because the teams are kind of stepping on themselves as they're pushing stuff through the pipelines. And so we just started talking about that. And the teams actually started doing some research and we had some strong developers on the team that says, hey, I got some good ideas. Why don't we try? Excellent. Let's start talking about that. And we kind of spun up a small little group of people to research that, and that's where they kind of came up with the idea. They found out that, wait a minute, we have 5 other dev environments already built that are just sitting there that nobody's using. It was like, oh my gosh, well, let's start using those then, and moving it along the way. So just kind of helping to facilitate and expose the problem, getting a few people to step up and volunteer. We started recognizing other ways, other opportunities to go.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Patrick. Other questions, comments? It's reminding me as a side note what you're thinking about, and I just put something about this in our channel because it came up in the Cal class. What we see is trends. We've talked a little bit about trends, but when I hear that kind of conversation, Sonny, in some part, this is technical leadership, right? This is people stepping up who know the technology and willing to try things out, how they collaborate, how they listen. And I think it's a miss at times to create spaces and forms the way you're talking about, where they actually choose to come together and collaborate. Because if you're not creating that space once a month, is that going to happen on its own? They got plenty of work to do. They're probably not, right? I think that's really significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to, and I know this isn't about Scrum necessarily, but it's like, well, there's a reason why Scrum has those certain ceremonies, right? And if you really, it's not the, oh, you have to follow Scrum and it's the reasoning behind those ceremonies. It's the repetitiveness. It's that, okay, this is where we come to talk about this kind of things. And if you don't open up that door for them, they're not going to walk through it. They're not going to create it themselves. They're just going to continue to head down. Hey, listen, as long as I'm coding exactly what they told me to code, all's good,
Yes. I've been there as a developer myself. And part of where that thread went this last week is talking with Paul Moore, our technical coach, about the CSPD, which is the end of the line for the developer, Certified Scrum Professional Developer. And its learning objectives are enable a culture of technical excellence, develop or guide the Scrum teams to learn and grow, facilitating environments for shared understanding, catalyzing high-performing technology organizations. Like, this is a leadership, and yet we commonly say, hey, devs, the end of your road is architect, team lead, right? But they'll actually go in their ivory tower and not collaborate. When I see the results you're talking about, Sonny, it's like we fostered that. Now, thank goodness they have a coach like you. Some of them don't, and left to their own devices, we never get there. We just keep going down that same line of, I know more and more about the technology, and yet here we don't even have CI/CD set up, right? So I just think I know it's not the point, like your point is whole technology transformation via Path to Agility. For those who don't know, Path to Agility does have whole cards on just that. I mean, you would have to assess yourself and say, do you have CI/CD set up? And what does that look like to develop those kind of craftsmanship practices? But don't forget that there is a whole track to get your devs on that, on not just collaborate better, listen, give feedback, et cetera, but leadership. I want to hear Sonny talk about that. In this case, he's allowing them to stand up that space to do that, but wouldn't you love for them to be able to do that anyway? So just keep that in mind. You don't have to trudge the road yourself. I know some of the conversation we had at times, Sonny, is the load you have amidst other hats that you're wearing and what you're trying to do on top of try to galvanize and lead a natural transformation, right? So don't trudge the road alone, for sure. So I'm glad that came up, Patrick. Thank you for asking. I think it's really significant. Other questions, comments, thoughts after hearing this?
And I'll have to say, Scott, just this was a 2.5 year journey. This was not easy, guys. This was this was a lot of starts and stops, and you know, that's why, you know, my last little nugget there was so important. You know, it was 2.5 years of going through additional training with Scott, you know, having, you know, different meetups and webinars with, you know, Bob and Ben and you know, some of you individuals that we, you know, we talk to all the time. And it's like, yeah, it is not all glory and success. There is a lot of work that's in here. So just because I happen to be sharing, you know, a nice positive case study, there was a lot of negative along the way. So trust me, I have not figured this all out.
Well, there you go with part of the reason I like Sonny's very humble, but in the bigger picture, we might have talked with some of the classes about the hero's journey, and I think what you just hear Sonny saying is what we talk about is the postcard ending. And yes, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but doggone it, don't you all want a day like this in the sun? I mean, I would. I want a success story, but the hero's journey is someone who wants something and overcomes, you know, adversity to get it. And Sonny wanted something, and he faced adversity. He hung in there, and in some ways, you earn that right for a moment in the sun because you put in all that work and you had the right attitude and did all that. So, Sonny, if you're talking to someone out there, to Ben's point, maybe you're at a conference, what would you say in terms of just advice, how to get started, encouragement for folks who haven't seen these wins? They're in your shoes, roll back 3 years. They've been at this company for 2.5, 3 years, like, doggone it. Anything's ever change, right? What would you say to them? How do they get started? What encouragement, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, don't lose focus. Um, find the individuals, find the path that people are willing to take, right? Meet individuals where they are. You're never going to force somebody to take a path that they're not going to want to go down to. So, you know, again, going back to remove your confirmation bias, right? Don't look for individuals that agree with you necessarily, that say, oh yeah, you're right, we really need to make this change, right? Because they're just gonna, you know, for the most part, yeah, you're right, and then let you and then move on, right? You know, really get to know what their issue is, right? Connect with them, and sometimes it's you know, sometimes you have to go through a few years of just, they're going through some personal issues, right? And just be there for them and listen to those things. It has absolutely nothing to do with the actual performance, you know, of work. And sometimes it's just like, connect with the human, and then let the other stuff kind of take flight there. So yeah, if there was one, you know, big outstanding piece of advice, I would say, forget the technology, forget the path to agilities, forget all of those things for now. Find it human within that individual and connect with that human. And if you're able to do that, the rest of the stuff is going to become a lot easier.
Okay. Good stuff. Awesome. Last call. That makes me want to put Sonny up in front of these classes from now on. Any last call for other questions, comments, anything? You pick his brain before we begin to wind down.
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always willing to help. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, you mentioned there was a change in priority.
Mhm.
So was your feeling that this effort had attained a level of success and change where now that the organization was able to kind of turn its attention to some other place? Or how did that work for it felt like that contributed sort of like the wrapping up of things. Did I understand that right?
Yeah. So it was more from a if you're talking to, you know, my point in the presentation where we talked about, you know, changing the priorities there. It was more just kind of recognizing the fact that, you know, the holidays, again, getting back to the human side of things, right? You know, the holidays are already kind of crazy enough for everybody else, right? was I really going to be making any significant gains over November and December if I really pushed this pretty hard? Yeah, not really, right? They were gonna be there. They were gonna be going through the motions, checking the boxes, but there wasn't really anything there. So connecting with the human side, number one. And then secondly, in like I mentioned in February, the trade show, we were actually one of the main sponsors of that trade show that they were doing in February. So it's just, again, why compete with that? You know, that obviously that's where, you know, they make their money. So it just allow that to happen and recognize that, you know what, you know, I wasn't going to completely go away. I would ping them, you know, and let them know, but
You saw it as a pause then.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it
Got
was
it.
just, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And that recognition is a valuable thing as opposed to trying to cling to what you have. So I'd say, well done on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, to me, just to add to that, Bob, I think that speaks to being aligned with your leadership and listening. We have plenty of times where all we do is reflect that we're not really listening and aligned to them, and it just breaks trust. And like, you're pushing changes and you don't even hear what we're saying. That is the real issue here. And you can be right and still be wrong on those, right? But if they don't think you understand and are listening and get it, you're losing confidence and trust as a change within the organ, supposedly trying to help you get better. I'm like, you know, see, this is the most important thing right now. So Sonny, I think that's good. Like flex, don't break, flex. I'll be here in March and we'll pick this back up and continue on. Yeah. It's a lesson in itself. Excellent. Last call, other questions? How helpful was this? Because we put in a little extra effort. Obviously, Sonny did. I can say we, but it was Sonny. But to try to pull people together to speak, because I really caught that from Larry's presentation last month of the value of the insights of people out there in the trenches. If this is helpful, we'll keep putting out there and try to reach out to people and encourage them to get out. Because I think I knew Sonny, so I knew he was going to crush it. But for others, it's like, I've never done this before. I don't know what story do I have to tell? But if this is valuable, let us know, and we're glad to keep putting that out there and try to pull in other people to hear these types of stories from Sonny and Larry. Any feedback, comment on that?
Hey, this is AJ. I think it was very valuable to hear case studies and experiences from other people, other industries that's very different than mine. It's also some form of solidarity to realize like the problems that you experience, Sonny, are the same ones that I've experienced as well. So yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think it's very valuable, especially with if somebody's like really trained and understands the process already. So that's what's helpful.
I was looking for can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I was looking for the raise hand in Zoom. I couldn't find it. So used to Teams. But yeah,
Yeah.
I want to say no, it's definitely very valuable because I see there's always a disconnect between book definitions versus actual real life experiences. And when you actually see book definitions meet real life experiences and people share that, I think that is the best. And the things that you really learn are the things that will actually help all of us in the future. So I would love to see more of this. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. I saw the comment in the chat as well. Another thumbs up. Saw Ben's thumbs up. Patrick?
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna mention, I think Todd might be a good person to do a presentation.
I missed it. Who might be?
Todd Calvert.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
CP.
Yes, of course.
We've
And
we've had quite the journey as well. I think it would be a good add to the
yes.
format.
Yeah, okay. I'll reach out to him. Thank you for that recommendation, volunteer. Yeah, if others have ideas, let me know. I know that a number of us have experiences and a wealth of experiences. I'm thinking about you, Ben, as well. And some of them aren't necessarily part of this community, even for those in the Orange County area. Some of you know David Lokeets. I think he's got a lot of stories. Gets on the business side. So if you have recommendations like that for Todd Calvert or others, please pass them on. Happy to reach out and coordinate and do that as well.
Yeah, Patrick, I probably should connect with you guys and hear some of the journey. Todd and I were talking about
Yeah, for sure.
Getting together before the end of the year, and then the holidays stopped it. So
yeah, fire that up again.
Still down the street. Okay, sounds good.
Excellent. All right. Well, we will do that and put that in front. Any last words, comments before we wrap up? We just used up all the time. That's good. All right. We'll shut it down. Again, thank you so much, Sonny. This has been wonderful. Everyone else, thank you for the questions, feedback, super helpful. We will let you know, queue up something for the first session of April. The next in 2 weeks, though, Lean Coffee, lots to talk about as always. We'll see you all then. Thank you again, Sonny. Everyone, take care. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Appreciate it. Well done.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, great job, Sonny. Thank you.
Thank you.